So if I could be any fictitious character, I would choose to be Captain Jack Sparrow. I don't know if it's the rebel spirit in him or the lure of adventure. He's hilarious. Or the fact that he's just a little bit off and he's totally okay with that. But what I do know I love about Captain Jack is his compass. He's got a compass that to everybody else appears to be broken because it doesn't point due north. But there within the beauty lies, because I think his compass does point north. It points to his north. We all have a north within us. It's that thing that we were designed to do. We were hardwired with it. It's that thing that Kirsten Casey so poetically put earlier tonight, that thing you cannot not do. It may ebb and flow with the seasons of life, and maybe sometimes we're not even exactly sure what that is, but we intuitively know it's there, and it's uniquely ours. So tonight, I want to invite you to reflect on your inner compass, because your north matters. It matters both to you and collectively to all of us. So for about the next 45 minutes, I'm going to take you on our story. Totally safe. TEDx, 18 minutes max, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you a few snapshots of my journey. And my journey and your journey is going to look very different. But our journeys have something in common. And what that is that transcendent truth, that universal storyline of pursuing our passions. So for me, there's always been two constants. The first is a love of travel. I like the sights and the smells and the sounds and just seeing life through a different set of lenses. And the second is just a deep desire to help others. So at the ripe old age of 20, I married my high school sweetheart. Heaven help us, he's here. A boy who had the same desires and dreams. So right after we were married, as all broke newlywed responsibly do, we gathered all of our pennies and we bought plane tickets to Europe. And with a tent and a couple sleeping bags, we had some grand adventures, and we knew that it was something that we wanted as part of our lives. But it wasn't long after we got back that our sights shifted to our culture's north. And so we got degrees, and we got jobs, and we bought a house, and we started a family. We were on track, the American dream. And let me tell you, I went after it with full gusto because I was like Martha Stewart track. I was like Miss Volunteer everything, and the kids were in every extracurricular activity they could be in, and whew, they looked the part too, gapped from head to toe. I was a doer, a pleaser, and an overachiever. And let me tell you, ladies, that's a bad cocktail mix if you're trying to find your true north. I loved all the praise I was getting, but deep down in here, I knew I was playing by somebody else's rules. And you know, I wish I could say that I got this lesson a lot earlier, but it wasn't until my oldest child was in 4th grade and we were assigned the infamous 4th grade mission project. Okay, well, for those of you who haven't had your mission project yet, may the force be with you. Because for me, whew, her project quickly became my project. And it wasn't even until I was writing this TED Talk that my daughter reminded me how out of control I really was. She reminded me that I made her and I dress in robes like Spanish padres and give her oral presentation to her class. She swears it's a miracle she's sane. I mean, seriously, talk about external validators. Oh my God, I was out of control. Well, she got an A+ on that project. And that's when it hit me. It was like an aha moment or a spiritual awakening. I mean, come on, seriously, how many of you have not done something like this? And if you haven't, God bless you, you were way more ahead of the learning curve than I was. But I realized I was working on someone else's project. So, took a deep step back, had a chat with my husband, and we started to ask some hard questions. What do we want our life to look like, and what are we really willing to do to make that happen? So that's when my internal compass shifted the first time a couple degrees. And we decided we needed to do something different, and we decided to alternatively educate our children at home. Whew. Not all roses, serious learning curve, and a lot of sacrifices, but it worked for us because it afforded us time and control, and with that came some freedom, and amongst that freedom came back that desire we knew we had. We wanted to travel and do it a little different. So I'm going to fast forward to about a year and a half ago. We'd been cruising along on our, about 8 years on our list of basically what we thought our family's north was. Some great acts of service, some missionary work, some travel, all good. Well, a year and a half ago, all that while becoming a little more comfortable in our skin and a little further outside the box, our 16-year-old son says he wants to graduate from high school early by testing out and taking a gap year. That has turned into 2. And we decided, okay, we're going to give him some room here to figure out where maybe his internal compass is pointing. So we said, all right, all we're going to ask of you is that you give us some reasonable goals, some tangible things that you're going to accomplish during this self-directed learning time. And then we looked at each other and we decided, well, if we totally mess him up, we'll pay for counseling, or he can live in the basement till he's 30, right? Okay, well, our very pragmatic son comes back to us a couple weeks later with a list of goals of things that he wants to accomplish, 2 of which have bearing on our story. The first is missionary work in a third world country, and the second is to learn to ride his dirt bike really, really well. Okay, so we decided we were going to give him this freedom. We told him it wasn't about the product, it was the process. And we seriously questioned our parenting skills and our educational philosophy on multiple levels, but we let him go for it. Then about 6 months later, he decides missionary work in a third world country is where he's at. This one we're on board with. A little nervous about, but we wholeheartedly support this one. So he starts to make some connections with a missionary named Scott in Peru. This guy has a passion too. Guess what for? Dirt bike riding. So this guy has managed to channel that passion into a nonprofit business where people from all over the world come to him, and he takes them on once in a lifetime amazing treks through the Andes Mountains. And then all of the proceeds are donated to support a children's home. Totally cool. This is where it all comes home. He needs someone to ride with him through the Andes Mountains. I mean, we're talking jungle to 15,000 feet snow-covered peaks and back down the other side. And that's when I was glad my husband and I let Wes become a really, really good rider. And it doesn't always work out, but sometimes when you follow those dreams and you listen to your internal compass and you turn around and the journey's over, the view gets to look like that. So before this whole hiccup began and Wes was making these plans, he comes into our room and he says, "Hey, Mom, Dad, there's a little problem. Scott didn't know I was only 16. Oh yeah, there's that. Well, we didn't want this dream to die for Wes, so we decided that we'd make it a family trip. So we're making plans, and looking back at it now, we didn't even really realize, but Wes was actually leading our family out on the next thing. He was weaving together the desire of acts of service and our desire to travel. Very cool. Well, 2 weeks before we go, all the details are done. My husband breaks his foot. Guess how? Dirt bike riding. Not a very, very good rider. 2 days before we go, my youngest son literally almost severs his pinky off with his pocket knife. So that's when the big man and we had a conversation, because I figured he was trying to tell me something that was 2 strikes. And I joke about it now, but in all actuality, I think that I was just scared. Travel's hard. A woman in a third world country, 2 blonde-headed boys. We're not going to blend in Peru. But I decided to be as brave as I could. The boys decided to man up, and the next thing you know, we're in Peru. Peru was an amazing trip, an eye-opening trip, something I think everyone should experience. It was beautiful. I learned there that life can be slow and sweet and simple. The lack of materialism is very obvious, but at the same time, it also maybe makes you realize that it can also be a distraction. But there was some hard stuff in Peru too, and when I look back at it, I realized that the blessings all came through the hard stuff. There was this one day that we went to work at the children's home, and we were literally trying to carve a soccer field for these kids out of the side of a mountain manually. The end of the day, I was wiped. We were tired. We walked back, try to catch the bus back to our hostel. It's dark. We're hungry. We're thirsty, but you can't drink the water. And all of it's happening in a foreign language. My head was just going to explode. All I needed was a warm shower. I get back, called first dibs on it. I'm 2 minutes into the shower, shampoo and hair, and wham, it goes cold. And I just stood there and I cried. I didn't know what else to do. I was like a spoiled brat who said, Lord, I'm here. I deserve this warm shower. Well, I guess he didn't agree with me because I didn't get it. But what I did get was a really deep appreciation for the things that I normally take for granted. And the next day when I went out into town and I saw the Peruvian women trying to sell their little trinkets to make some money, and I realized at the end of the day when it was all said and done, maybe they would have earned what you or I, without thinking twice about, might go into Starbucks and spend on a coffee and a muffin. And I knew I didn't want to change them, and I sure didn't want to impose my American worldview on them, but I knew I wanted to help. There were shifts that were happening, and I wasn't even exactly sure what the lessons were. I think I was too deep in it to really be able to decipher the message. And after I came back, I was in a funk for a little while. And it took me a little while to get some clarity and to gain some deeper understanding of what that experience was for me and how it was lining up with my inner compass. And what came from that was this. I knew I wanted to help. I wanted to do acts of service. And this is what it looks like for us. Ralph Waldo Emerson defines it the best. He says, to leave the world a better place, whether by a healthy child or a garden patch, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded. So that brings us to today. We have a new dream. Our compass is set on a new fun north. And we've decided that we would like to spend the next 4 years that our youngest child is in high school. He's currently on an exchange and he'll be home in 6 months. And when he returns and begins high school, my husband and I would like to spend 2 to 3 months of every year doing acts of service in a third world country. That's a big one. Even for my friends who are here tonight, no. So we realized that we're going to have to do something different to make this one come about. And it's going to take some sacrifices. And what I've realized is I'm willing to give up some of those creature comforts of mine to make this dream float. Just not the warm shower, because I'm not Mother Teresa. But we've decided to move out of our home that we've lived in for the past 22 years and move into the caretaker's unit at our business. It's a small 2-bedroom, old 1-bath, and that's going to be my new normal for a while. And it's going to be hard, but not the kind of hard I can't handle, the kind of hard that just feels right. And it's interesting because what I'm starting to figure out is what seems like a sacrifice actually feels more like a freedom. So yeah, I'm scared, and yeah, I feel society's judgment sometimes when I'm not sending my boys to high school and I'm having to move, and they look at me like I'm just a little bit off. But I just think about Captain Jack. And I don't know how it's all going to turn out. I don't know if it's going to turn out the way I think it might or hope it will. But I know it feels right. I feel like I'm on course. So tonight, as you reflect on your inner compass, I just want to ask you, what feels right for you? What is that thing that you know you need to be doing? What is that north for you? And pursue it. Because I promise you it's worth it. It's important. It's yours. And any time that you can spend being your authentic self, finding your north and doing what you were designed to do, it's going to greatly impact all of us around you. So tonight, as our journeys part, I want to invite you one more time. This time, I want to invite you to grab your compass, steer clear of the sirens of the sea who would like to lure you off course, and instead, head for your unique north. Thank you.